Now we're going to begin a new way of programming where we're going to divide our programs into smaller subprograms, and we'll be doing this by creating what's known as objects. So we're going to be doing object-oriented programming, which is maybe something that you've heard mentioned before. So all of a sudden there's a few parts of this that are going to be more important than they used to be, and we could program without needing to know what they meant. So this word public is going to be pretty important as far as classes go. So when something is public, public means it can be accessed from other classes. So we're going to be making classes which, well, it's not quite a subprogram, but I'll show you how it works. And in order to make them accessible, we need to have things public for accessible and private for not accessible. So with this one, we're just going to be dealing with public. So anything that's public can be accessed from other classes, which we don't always want. So now one thing that we'll see is main has a capital M, which is for classes. So whenever we make a class, we see that it's a class by it starting with a capital letter. So now when we have lowercase, this is going to be for objects which are have the type of a class, which we're going to see in just a minute, or these can be data types, like variables or things like that. So any of those start with a lowercase letter. So this is one of the distinctions that we're going to have is that classes are all going to start with capital letters. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to create a program, just a very simple one where we're going to pay some workers based on how many hours they worked. So we are going to be creating a class called employee. So whenever we refer to it, it's going to start with a capital letter. Now we haven't created it yet, but we're just going to do some work in our main program so that we can kind of get it working. And we'll have 3 employees. So we'll have Jose, and we're going to make them be a new employee. And then we'll open and close parentheses. Now, we've seen this kind of notation before with things like scanner, because scanner is a class, and we have been creating objects called input that have that type. So now we're going to go with employee, you always have to spell it correctly, Panchito, which is going to be a new employee, and then employee Donald, which is also going to be a new employee. Okay. So we've got these 3, and this part of the program is called object construction. At the top of the program, we typically declare variables, and then we construct objects. Now, construction actually implies something a little bit more complicated, so we actually have to write code for how this works. So in order to do that, we are going to create our class. So here's how you're going to do this. We've got our main.java. So this is our main class. The main one is typically called main, or if you're using packages, it'll have the name of the package. So we're going to create a new file, which is this up here, and we need to give it a name. So this one is going to be employee.java. Make sure you include the .java here so that it knows that it is a Java file. So now we've got 2 tabs here. each of them is a different program file. So we've got our main. So when the program runs, it's going to look for main, and that's where it's going to get its main instructions from. And then whenever we create an object that has the type employee, it's going to look over here for information about how that is going to be constructed. So we'll start this with public class employee. There we go. And you'll see that it's the same as main. Public class main for main.java, public class employee for employee.java. So now there are two main parts to this. Class members, which is like the data that they hold. And then the second part is going to be for class methods. Which is like an action that they can do. So imagine that I had a sheet of paper and I wrote down 3 numbers on the sheet of paper. Well, that would be like the data. Now, an action that it could be performed might be like fold it. So I could fold the paper. That doesn't change the data on it, but the folding might change some other element of it. So this is room for data and room for actions. So what do we need to know about our employees? Well, we're going to need to know how many hours they have worked. So we're going to make an int hours here. And then we'll have a wage. So this is how much money they make per hour. So this is amount per hour. Okay. Now, in terms of the methods, the actions they perform, the only one that we're going to create in this program is what's called a constructor method. So as I said, object construction needs a little bit of code to say how it's going to accomplish this. And this is going to be pretty much the most basic one you can imagine. So we are going to create a method here. So hopefully you've already, learned how to work with methods. And we're going to call this one public employee. So now this is a special one. So the constructor has the same name as the class. So that's an important thing here. So the constructor is just public employee. And then in here, we're going to set the initial value. So we're going to initialize what is the starting hours and what is the starting wage. So our hours is going to get the value 0, and our wage, let's say our starting wage is $22.35. There we go. So now what's going to happen is whenever we construct these 3 objects, Jose, Panchito, and Donald, they will have 0 hours, and their wage is going to be set to 23. So how do we access and work with those things? So what we'll do is we'll do a system.out.println. Let's print out their wages. So Jose wage is going to be plus. Now the way we access it is we name the object, we put a dot, and then we say what inside the object we want to access. We want to access the wage. And then we're going to do this for the other employees. So we'll go Panchito will be here. And then we'll put Donald on the last line. There we go. Okay, so now if I run the program, let's see what happens. What we get are their 3 wages. They're all set to $22.35. So you might not trust that all of the workers, the employees, have their own individual wages because they're all the same amount. But before we do this, let's access. We'll imagine that this is after a review of their work, And let's change Panchito's wage. So Panchito has been working pretty well, so we'll go dot wage. And we'll say that that is going to be equal to now 25.37 an hour. Now, just see a typo here. Now we'll say that Donald has been working really well and there's some sort of promotion here. So what we want to do is we're going to double the amount of money that Donald makes. So that is going to be equal to Donald.wage times 2. So now if I run this, what you'll see is they all have their own individual wages that we can access this way. Okay. So now I've doubled this. I've increased this a little bit amount. So now let's have them work a little bit. So let's say that Jose.hours is going to become equal to 12. Panchito.hours is going to be 17, and Donald.hours is going to be equal to 8. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to access those values here, and I will print how many hours they've got. So hours, hours, and hours. And of course, don't forget to change these values here so that we display the correct information. And then we'll also say what their pay is. So we'll go pay, pay, pay. And now what we want to do is we want to multiply the amount of hours they have times their wage. So I'm going to go multiply, multiply, multiply. And rather than retype this out, I'm just going to do a copy and paste here of their wages so that I don't accidentally make any typos. Okay, and I feel this is going to look a little bit nicer with an extra println to separate these values here. So let's put one here and one here just to make it look a little bit nicer. Okay, so running the program. We've got, oh, looks like a good round off error here. So we've got the wages, we've got the hours that they've worked, and then we've got the final amount that they're paid at the end of the program. So classes can do a whole lot more than just store information, but this is a pretty basic example that'll show you how they work before we add some extra functionality. So as we move forward, one thing that you'll have to pay attention to is sometimes which class we're working in. So pay attention to which one is highlighted. This is the final main.java, and then this is the final employee.java. So do pay attention to that.